Well, that certainly didn't take long at all. The Bambu Lab knockoff or aftermarket parts have arrived on the market, and in this video, I'm going to test each and every one of them out and let you know which ones are worth buying. Let's dive in. First, some quick background on why this is a big deal. You see, since the moment Bambu Lab came out with their game-changing X1 Carbon, people have pretty much been saying the exact same thing. It's an amazing, game-changing printer, but it's not open source. As I talked about in my review, it's a walled garden ecosystem, and while that offers some amazing benefits such as a perfect marriage between the hardware and software and industry-shifting performance, it also, as so many YouTube commenters love to remind me, means that you are wholly dependent on Bambu Lab for replacement parts and service. Or are you? See, I've been thinking about this for a while now, and I've been wondering, does it even matter that Bambu Lab's hardware isn't open source? I mean, look, recently a lot of companies in the consumer 3D printing industry have decided to break rank and go the proprietary route with parts of their ecosystem. This includes Slice Engineering taking legal action against companies that it feels copied their patented designs, to E3D making only part of their new Revo ecosystem open source, to Bondtech licensing patented technology to create the CHT nozzle. And yet, in all of these cases, just a few short months later, the end result was the same as it would have been in the case of open source. Clones began to flood the market. Now, you can pick up exact copies or even improved versions of each of these products, which may not even infringe on IP because they are significantly changed on AliExpress for a fraction of the price. Is this ethical? Legal? I mean, look, I am the last person who wants to endorse or condone any kind of stealing intellectual property. After all, I bought my dream home by selling my own intellectual property in the forms of courses and books, and I know firsthand just how much it sucks to see other people stealing your intellectual property. But at the end of the day, it's most certainly not stealing IP if you are significantly changing the design to actually improve it, such as the design for a removable 3-hole insert that turns any nozzle into a CHT nozzle, and which, as Stefan from CNC Kitchen discovered, actually outperforms the real deal. And frankly, while some of the clones that I'm about to show all of you are of course cheaper than buying the original parts, that's not even the real draw here, because Bambu Lab, to their credit, has made replacement parts incredibly affordable, though they don't actually ship to every country just yet. The real draw, as you'll soon see, is that some of these parts are actually improvements over the originals, with better availability and at lower costs. Now, I'm no intellectual property lawyer, so I have no idea what constitutes a significant enough change to be considered a new creation and not IP infringement. But it's also worth noting that although Bambu Lab does talk about patents in their blog, and while I did find tons of patents in the names of all the different founders, I was not able to find any patents for the specific parts that we're going to be talking about today, nor for any of the parts of the Bambu Lab X1 Carbon or P1P for that matter. Instead, I found a lot of patents that had to do with ideas such as stabilization systems used on DJI drones, file management systems, and so on. So it may well be that while many of the designs on Bambu Lab products are proprietary, they may not actually be legally patented in a way that would prevent anyone else from innovating upon them. Or at least I wasn't able to find them, and a spokesman for Bambu Lab didn't get back to me in time for this video. A caveat. And by the way, I want to preface this entire video by saying that, yes, I know that the aftermarket parts I'm going to be sharing later on in the video are aftermarket renditions of relatively low-tech proprietary parts, not circuit boards or injection molded parts, but to that, I say, just wait. Sure, right now, the aftermarket has only developed these handfuls of high-demand, simple replacement parts, but there's literally nothing stopping them, or you and I, from producing, designing, uploading, and distributing replacement pieces for every other component on the printer. I could, for example, 3D scan the tool head cover and upload it to printables so that anyone who breaks theirs can print a replacement. We're already seeing people improving on the original injection molded parts and uploading those designs as open source. Or those of you who are particularly knowledgeable enough could design custom, even upgraded PCBs for things like the tool head or even the whole control board, and upload or open source your upgraded versions of those designs, even if the original is proprietary. But Jonathan, you might be thinking, the difference is that most of us can't produce our own PCBs or get our own sheet metal made or 3D print metal. So what good is it if someone uploads the designs? Well, it's at this point that I would like to remind you of our longtime sponsor, PCBWay, who can handle all of that for you. Now, just imagine with me here. Someone out there decides that they want to edit or modify the Bambu Lab toolhead, for example, by adding some NeoPixel RGB LEDs that change color, or an upgraded cooling fan, or a Revo extruder when the new high-flow version comes out, hopefully later this year. And so they go about designing all the necessary parts in CAD. They design a new mount for the Revo design and a new toolhead PCB, and they design all kinds of new plastic parts. Then they upload those files to PCBWay's project page, whereby PCBWay will allow you and I to simply click one button and order those parts 3D printed in resin, for example, for a cool translucent look, or even printed in machined aluminum if we want. Or maybe someone decides to design and upload some upgraded enclosure panels made of sheet metal to turn the P1P into a more polished enclosed printer. PCBWay can do all of this for us, which really blurs the line between open source community contributions and professionally manufactured parts and upgrades. And it really makes me wonder if it actually matters that the original design isn't itself open source. So, first of all, I'd love to see some of you upload your own upgrades and modifications to the Bambu Lab ecosystem, such as a PCB for the toolhead or upgraded designs, because this really is only the beginning of the Bambu Lab upgrades. But second of all, make sure you check out PCBWay for your next project, because it's seriously insane the things that they can make for you. Thanks again, PCBWay, for sponsoring the channel and for all the cool things that you enable us and will enable us makers to create. Okay, so with that caveat out of the way, let's get into the actual review with the first and most exciting upgrade, the upgraded hot end. One of the things that many Bambu Labs owners quickly noticed was that in an era of quick swap nozzles like the E3D Revo, the Bambu Lab nozzle is, well, it's not quick at all. In the best case scenario, you choose to spend a little bit more picking up an entire hot end assembly, and then it's only 2 screws and some wiring and a bunch of connectors to replace. But in the worst case scenario, changing a nozzle, a nozzle, means undoing 4 screws, dealing with thermal paste, rerouting wires, and so much more. And while $35 is certainly not a lot of money to spend to simplify this whole process, it gets expensive and annoying real quick if you want 5 different nozzle sizes, for example, and the ability to switch between them and hardened nozzles and regular ones quickly. Fortunately, this problem is solved with this new design for the Bambu Lab hot end. Basically, what it does is replace the heatsink and nozzle with one that is almost identical, but which adds a V6 threaded nozzle in the end, meaning that you can simply unscrew the nozzle just like any other. Now, you might be thinking there's probably a good reason that Bambu Lab didn't do this in the first place themselves. After all, they do claim that they had to design this proprietary hot end in order to get the performance where it is today. But in all of my testing, this design works just as well, if not better, and plus the fact that it allows you to put another type of V6 hot end right in there and use aftermarket technology such as a copycat CHT nozzle, well, it actually increases the performance of the original hot end. I even saw some folks on the Bambu Lab Discord saying that they were able to achieve a staggering 40mm cubed flow rate by doing this one simple mod, and so I decided to test that out. I downloaded a simple flow rate test uploaded to printables by Keen's Customs and reconfigured it for a 0.6mm nozzle, which would try to push the extruder to a staggering 52mm cubed per second, roughly twice what I am currently achieving on my Voron with the Phaetus Rapido hot end at standard PLA temperatures. I was pretty sure that we were not going to get anywhere near there because I started with just testing on cheapo standard PLA, and I didn't have any fancy high flow stuff on hand, but I decided to find out for science. Now, the first time around with some generic off-the-shelf PLA, I was only able to get it around 33 to 34mm cubed per second. But then I actually tried this test again with some premium PLA from Voxel PLA. They didn't sponsor this episode, but they are a longtime sponsor, and I really like their product. And the results really spoke for themselves. I still need to measure this, so I'll put the numbers up on screen, but I'm pretty sure that I was able to break 40mm cubed per second with the Voxel PLA, which is just unbelievable. And it's a major upgrade for the Bambu if you want to be able to print 1mm nozzles and really push the speed that the kinematics of the printer themselves are able to do. There were, however, a lot of drawbacks. First, I did have a few small issues during installation, though they're almost all due to user error. First, I tried to perform this upgrade inside the printer and quickly realized that that was a huge mistake. It was just much easier to take the hot end out. I don't know what I was thinking. Also, I mistakenly put the thermal paste all over the place instead of just where it's needed in between the heating element and the nozzle's flat area, which meant that by the time I was done, I was not only a bloody mess, but also I didn't have enough thermal paste for where I actually needed it. That's going to come up again in a minute. Additionally, I managed to strip the grub screws before I even got things up and running because I made the massive mistake of using the Junkola included Allen keys. Never use the included Allen keys. Hopefully that won't give me issues down the road when I try to change nozzles. Oh, and then I tore the silicone sock, the only silicone sock that I had, while trying to shove it over the V6 nozzle. So yeah, not a super successful installation process. What's more, I started having some serious issues with the thermistor not working properly after the upgrade. First, it was reading 0, but I was actually able to solve that by restarting the printer. But then I had a few issues with the printer stopping the entire print because it thought there was an issue with the thermistor or hot end. This issue has become a lot less persistent, and I've narrowed it down to either not enough thermal paste in the thermistor hole or the need to PID tune after replacing the nozzle and hot end, which as of now, Bambu Lab doesn't allow you to do, or the fact that I tore the silicone sock, because one way or another, it is clearly exacerbated by the part cooling fan and auxiliary fans, so I've kind of messed up the printer for now. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel with notifications on, because once I do figure it out and fix it, I'll be happy to share the solution on the community tab of this channel, so anyone else running into it can fix it as well. And there's more. As others have noted, a standard V6 nozzle is too tall, and while the X1C's perfect first layer features know how to handle that and adjust for it, and I've never had any first layer issues since upgrading, it does occasionally create an annoying pop-up on the screen, depending on which build plate I'm using, as well as really doing a number on the nozzle wiper. Check this out. This can easily be fixed by grinding down your nozzles, hopefully they're not authentic Bondtech ones, by a millimeter or so using a diamond Dremel wheel or angle grinder, but ain't nobody got time for that. But if you do, everything would just work perfectly, but it might not even be worth the hassle, especially if you have other printers with V6 style hot ends that you want to swap the nozzles between. Now I can tell you that I did a lot of prints with the nozzle sticking out, and I had no real issues besides the ones that I've already mentioned, which were a lot of issues, let's be honest. You could, of course, also just buy the specially modified V6 nozzles that this AliExpress seller offers, but then you're kind of negating one of the major benefits, at least to me, of this hot end design, and that's the ability to use any nozzle you want, including the CHT nozzles you may have. And as we mentioned, the whole idea is not being locked into one vendor for your replacement parts. So what did you achieve if you're just locked into another vendor that's even less reputable than... Anyway, one thing to note here is that you need to pay attention to this tiny little bit of stringing, because I had the same issue when upgrading my Voron to a CHT nozzle, and so it does seem to have something to do with the more thorough melting and possibly with the difficulty of retracting molten filament that's already been split 3 ways. Now, of course, it's no big deal, it's just a little bit of stringing, and I'll hit it with a heat gun or tweak my profiles. But at the end of this video, when I share my final conclusions and talk about the bigger picture, I'll come back to this stringing and explain why it's actually a much bigger deal than just stringing. So stay tuned for that. For now, however, I think we've spent more than enough time talking about nozzles. It's taken me like 2 hours just to record this part. So here's the bottom line. Do I recommend this upgrade or not? Unfortunately, I'm going to have to answer with a somewhat annoying "it depends," but I'll go into a little bit of detail and I'll explain why. First of all, there are some sellers selling these parts for $28 and others selling a complete hot end, though without the fan, so it's not complete, for $47. Now that may not seem like a big difference, but remember that Bambu Lab will sell you an official complete hot end with the fan that's plug and play for just $35. Not to mention that the more expensive sellers are selling 3 nozzles of their special fancy modified ones for $24, whereas the original bamboo steel nozzles are only $9.99 each. And don't get me started on this seller selling 3 of the silicone socks for literally double what the original manufacturer ones go for. Now, do I think this is a great buy at $28? Heck yeah, and if you're going to use it with these specially designed nozzles, it's definitely worth it. Plus, if you do plan to switch nozzles a lot, for example, if the Bambu Lab is your only 3D printer, then yeah, I think it's probably worth either investing the money in the more expensive, low-profile V6 nozzles that they sell, or investing time in grinding down a few of the knockoff nozzles yourself, which you're gonna have to do if you want to print with 0.8 or 1.0 millimeter nozzles, because as of right now, it doesn't seem like they offer any of the low-profile nozzles in those bigger sizes. Or you'll have to live with the occasional error message now and again. Ultimately, there's no doubt that swapping out a nozzle rather than taking out an entire hot end assembly, or even swapping the entire hot end, is going to be a lot easier and more convenient. However, at $46 for just the hot end plus $24 for the nozzles, you're already at $70, and that's just $20 away from Bambu's limited offer of $89 for an extruder, a complete hot end, and nozzles for 0.6, 0.8, and 0.4, though I guess you will still have to swap over fans and so on. So ultimately, it really comes down to just how lazy you are, how much you value your time and the uptime of your printers, and how much you actually plan to swap out the nozzles. Or if you live somewhere where Bambu Lab doesn't ship yet, but you manage to smuggle a printer across the borders, then yeah, do what I did and just get the knockoff so that you're never stuck without a nozzle again. Okay, bottom line, am I happy that I did this upgrade? No, not really. I should have just figured out a way to get some of the original hot ends shipped to me by Bambu Lab, because the additional flow and convenience, for me at least, wasn't worth all the annoying errors that I'm now having to solve. But I did it for all of you guys. For science! So the least you can do is tear apart that like button like I tore apart my only silicone sock. Thank you. Okay, I'm really sick of talking about nozzles now.
Hi, I'm Editing Jonathan. Every single day, helpless video editors are abused with videos that are 35 minutes long. And all they want to do is see their wives and maybe sleep. But you can help this situation. For just one click of the subscribe button, you can see this video's second part which we have broken up to allow those same video editors to have a new life. Help us help those in need. Click the subscribe button, and we'll have another video for you later this week. Thank you.